British. Many of the big hotels are on the south side of the bay. Here there are smallish beaches of fine sand that are very safe for bathing and have good facilities. However, the beaches are poor near the town centre, and yet this is the main area for the smaller hotels and apartments. To find a really attractive beach, most holidaymakers take a boat trip to one of the many sandy coves just a few miles away. This one is at Cala Conta. San Antonio has an excellent selection of open-air cafes and restaurants, although English food rather than Spanish is the usual fare. Also, there's a vast selection of typical souvenir shops. At night, an area called the West End comes to life. The age range is 17 to 25. The atmosphere is noisy. The bars stay open until 3, the discos until dawn.
Now, our verdict on San Antonio. We think that if nightlife is what you're looking for, you couldn't go anywhere better. But for a decent beach, you'll have to go out of town. Working clockwise around the coast, the next resort is Puerto San Miguel.
Puerto San Miguel is a small resort situated around a bay. There are 2 large hotels built into the cliffs, giving superb views. The beach is quite small, with golden sand. It can become rather crowded in the afternoon. There are the usual facilities for hiring sunbeds and umbrellas, and there are some small bars right at the edge of the beach. For the adventurous, there's water skiing. For the more sedate, pedalos. The water is very clear. Puerto San Miguel is a quiet resort with not many shops or bars. It's equally popular with Germans and British. There is development along the main road to the beach, which makes the area dusty and gives the place an unfinished feel.
Puerto San Miguel is quiet and picturesque with a good beach, but there's not much to do there and it's a bit isolated. Near the northern tip of the island is Portinach.
Portinach has 3 beaches. The smallest is the Playa La Porte in a small bay to the north. The sand is greyish and not too attractive, but the sea is clear and the surroundings very picturesque. The main beaches are Saranal Gran and Saranal Petit. Saranal Gran is the larger of the 2, with soft, clean sand and a gently shelving shoreline. And being so, there are good water sports facilities here, and also boat trips that make the most of the clear sea. Saranal Petit is just a smaller version of the main beach. The sea is again shallow and clear. There's a paved footpath between the 2 beaches, with several cafes and bars. These are very popular for lunchtime drinks and snacks. There's a bigger selection of eating places on the main street. There is, however, no town centre to Portinach, just a straggle of shops and cafes strewn along this one main street. There is a new shopping centre at the edge of the resort. There is also a small but well-equipped water park next to the main beach. It costs around £4 per person for the day. Children are half price.
We think the beaches in Portinach are excellent, but the resort itself is rather isolated. Coming down the east coast, the next resort is Escanar.
Escanar is very popular with British holidaymakers, especially families. The main beach is set in a bay. The sand is greyish but clean. There are all the usual facilities, but the beach tends to get crowded. Pedalos cost £3.50 an hour. There is no promenade along the seafront, but there is a pavement on the far side of the road. Here there's a big selection of cafes, shops and bars, all of which have a new look, giving a clean and modern feel to the resort, and most of them are situated within a small area. From the small harbour next to the beach, regular boat services go to other resorts along the coast. Just outside Escanar are several smaller beaches. These are often more attractive and far less crowded than the town beach. Also, if you like walking, there are plenty of footpaths along the coast in this area.
The plus point for Escanar is that it's relatively compact, but on the other hand, it does mean the main beach gets crowded. 4 miles along the coast is Santa Eulalia.
Santa Eulalia is a large resort with a cosmopolitan feel. It has an extremely smart seafront. The promenade is wide and modern, with a good choice of bars and cafes and restaurants. It's especially lively in the evening. The beach is in a bay and quite narrow for most of its length. The sand is golden, but there are some patches of seaweed. The shore shelves gently, so it's safe for children, and there are good water sport facilities, including a water sausage. For a change of scene, there are regular ferries to other beaches in the area. Santa Eulalia has a daily market in an attractive tree-lined area. It specialises in jewellery, arts and crafts. The main road, parallel to the seafront, is good for shopping. There are several upmarket clothes shops as well as the usual tourist shops. There are also some good quality restaurants here.
We think the best feature in Santa Eulalia is the attractive promenade, although for a large resort, the main town beach is rather small. 5 miles south is Cala Leonga.
Cala Leonga is a picturesque resort set in a horseshoe-shaped bay and flanked by pine trees. The two main hotels are on the side of the bay. There's also a large complex of self-catering apartments set back from the beach. It is for hire, like sunbeds and brollies. At one end of the beach is a small water slide for children, but the water isn't exactly crystal clear. The shape of the bay ensures most of the rubbish stays put. However, the sea is much clearer further out. There is no town as such at Cala Leonga, but there are a few cafes, bars and tourist shops near the beach and on the main road out of the resort. Nightlife is limited, but there is a disco together with some bars.
Cala Leonga is an attractive location with a good beach, but there's not much there. Going south, the next big town is the capital Ibiza town, but this is not a resort. Just outside, though, is Figueretes.
Figueretes is almost a suburb of Ibiza town. It's so close that you can easily walk between the two. And at weekends, it's a favourite sunbathing spot for the locals. The seafront has a modern promenade with bars and cafes.
The best thing about Figueretes is that it's close to Ibiza town, where there's lots to do, but the resort itself is small and cramped. A couple of miles along the coast is Playa den Bossa.
Playa den Bossa is built on the longest beach on the island, 3 miles of golden sand. Because of its length, it never gets too crowded, even though it's close to Ibiza town. Unfortunately, it's also close to Ibiza airport and directly under the main flight path. At peak season weekends, there are planes every 15 minutes, day and night. It can get very noisy. The resort is dominated by the huge Fiesta complex of hotels and apartments. This is particularly well equipped with facilities, from crazy golf to swimming pools. Nearby, there's the Aquamar water park. Towards the centre, Playa den Bossa is disappointing. It has a scruffy, poorly maintained appearance, though there are plenty of bars, cafes and tourist shops. But the worst thing is the building work. There is a lot of it in the area, giving the resort a decidedly unfinished feel.
We think the beach at Playa den Bossa is the best on the island, but you'll certainly notice the aircraft noise. Well, that's our quick look at the main resorts. If you're keen on nudism, there are 2 officially recognised beaches, Playa Cavallet in the south and Aguas Blancas in the north. But there are many other beaches where it's accepted unofficially. Now, if you're keen on nightlife, where should you go?
San Antonio is the nightlife centre of the island. Here there are 470 bars and 7 discos to choose from, but most of the larger resorts have some nightlife available. The west end of San Antonio has had a reputation for rowdyism, but extra police are now drafted in to cope with any potential hooligans. The British are usually the worst offenders, though this year arrests were actually down on previous years. In Ibiza town, the nightlife is slightly more sophisticated. Lots of poseurs walking around the open-air cafes and narrow streets, before going on to one of the larger discos or the casino.
You'll find the pockets of nightlife reasonably localised. Most resorts are not that noisy in the evening. There were reports in the papers last year of British tourists being pestered by people selling drugs in bars and discos. This did not appear to be the problem this year, although 6 British visitors were arrested on drugs charges. Incidentally, there have been no official reports this year of muggings, although our advice would be not to carry around large amounts of money. Use the hotel's safety deposit boxes. Now, if you decide to go to Ibiza, what can you expect in the way of weather? Well, John Ketley has the facts. John, is it an all-year-round resort?
Well, in truth it is, yes, Penny. It is the driest of the Balearic Islands. It's marginally drier than Mallorca, and considerably drier than Minorca further east. A word of warning though, probably October to December is the time best to avoid if you've got the whole year to go at. Then it can be rather disturbed with weather systems coming off the Atlantic and through the Straits of Gibraltar. Let's take a look then at the sunshine. Typical sunshine hours per day throughout the year. About 5 hours of sunshine actually in January, February, and again at the end of the year, November, December, but as much as 11 or 12 hours through those favourable summer months. Temperature-wise, it's never very cold, about 15 degrees probably in the middle of winter, and rising to a peak at 29 degrees Celsius, and once again, this is an average shade temperature in July and August. Incidentally, it can be quite chilly in the winter time, about 7 degrees as a minimum in January, February, so that's quite cold, despite the fact that you're surrounded by really quite warm water. But in the middle of summer, 20 or 21 degrees is a minimum temperature, so you can have one or two rather restless nights, I think, a little bit humid at night. As regards rainfall, well, I've mentioned it's the driest of the Balearic Islands. The rain days per month, though, do drop to about 1 or 2 during the summer months, so really it's just rainfall once every Preston gill, just the odd thunderstorm. But the wettest period is right at the end of the year, October, November and December, and then it can be a little bit disappointing.
John, how warm is the sea?
Well, now we're talking big toes, of course, Penny. If my toes could talk, they would say threshold 20 degrees. I wouldn't go in the water if it was less than 20 degrees. So in the middle of winter, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. About 13 degrees then. But say from the end of June to October, it's certainly warm enough for me, and it reaches a peak in August of 24.
Did you get much wind there? It didn't look very windy in the film.
No, it didn't, Penny, but you always get sea breezes, of course, in the Mediterranean. These are very refreshing, of course, but one thing that's not refreshing is a wind that comes down from the north, say in November and December. It's a tramontana wind. It's really an extension of the Mistral over southern parts of France. It can be quite a cold blast, just lasting for, say, a couple of days, and even bring some snow to the mountainous areas of Ibiza every now and again.
And does it get dark much earlier there than here?
Well, it's in the western part of the Mediterranean, so it is only a marginal thing, but perhaps about 15 to 20 minutes earlier. Something like 20 past 9 in the middle of summer, but when the clocks go back, about 6:30 in October.
Thanks, John. Now, some basic information about Ibiza. The money is Spanish pesetas. You get around 200 to the pound, and you'll find plenty of places to change both sterling or travellers' cheques. A word of warning, though, banks often have a minimum charge of about £2, which makes it very expensive to change small amounts. Hotels will usually give a lower exchange rate. You have to weigh that against the convenience of using a hotel. Access and Visa are widely accepted and are often the cheapest way of buying things. Your statement will have the cost converted at the official rate. You pay no commission. Shops are normally open from 9 till 1. The siesta lasts until 4, and then they're open again till 8. English newspapers are widely available, usually the next day. Electricity is 220 volts, and you'll need a Continental 2-pin plug, so if you're taking a hairdryer or anything else electrical, you'll need an adapter. Medical facilities are not as good as here. Officially, with a valid E111 form, you can use the Spanish NHS, but our advice would be don't bother. It's not worth using it. It's an administrative nightmare before you ever get to see a doctor. It's far better to take out medical insurance. You'll find chemists particularly helpful for minor ailments. The shops always have a green cross outside. Also, they'll sell without prescription a range of antibiotics. Chemists operate a rota. There's always one open 24 hours a day. Now, what can you expect in the way of food?
English food is available all over the island and is quite cheap. Chicken and chips costs about £2.25. In fact, it's often hard to find Spanish food at all, but it is there if you're prepared to look for it. Try the outskirts of the resorts, or sometimes there are local restaurants tucked away in the centre. There aren't many indigenous dishes, but fish stew is one. This is made from a variety of Mediterranean fish in an onion and garlic stock, and it's unique to Ibiza. Aioli is a mixture of mayonnaise and garlic, which is eaten with bread and almost guaranteed to ruin your chances of a romantic evening. You can usually sample local food at a tapas bar. Tapas are snacks that used to be served free with a drink, but now you pay for them. They come in small portions, fish, meat or vegetables. A selection will do as a main meal. Typical examples are meatballs in sauce, a portion of Spanish omelette or tortilla, squid, sometimes fried with potatoes, baby octopus, and Russian salad, made mainly from potatoes. Do beware of the cost, though. If you have one portion each, it's a good cheap snack. But if you have a selection, it's no cheaper than a full meal. After the meal, you can try yerbas, the local liqueur. It's made from herbs and tastes aniseedy. It's said by the locals to make women beautiful and men virile.
If you have a really bad meal or feel you've been ripped off, remember that every Spanish hotel and restaurant has by law to have an official complaints book. You have an absolute right to make a note of your complaint, and these books are regularly inspected by the authorities. Now, with Ibiza being fairly small, it's quite practical for holidaymakers to explore other parts of the island. So what's the best way to get around?
There's a very good network of bus services around the island, with buses to all the main resorts, although you may have to change in Ibiza town for some smaller ones. You'll need a ticket before you can get on the bus. San Antonio to Ibiza town return costs about 85 pence. Taxis usually have a green light on their roof. They are not metered, so try to agree a price before you set off. There are taxi ranks in all the large resorts, and it's a good idea if you're going out for the evening to find out where the local rank is, if you're likely to want a taxi back. If you fancy getting around independently, hire cars are available all over the island. A small car like a Fiesta will cost about £22 a day, all in. Mopeds and scooters are also available for daily or weekly hire. Mopeds cost about £5 a day. You need to be extremely careful though. Some roads have very rough surfaces, and crash helmets are not normally offered by the hire shop, although they are supposed to be compulsory. If you want to avoid the roads altogether, there are plenty of opportunities to go by boat. There are ferries from all the larger resorts to small beaches in the area, or to other resorts further along the coast. But beware, there are beach rush hours. Most services are around mid-morning and late afternoon. During the rest of the day, boats can be pretty infrequent.
Bicycles can be hired for about £2.50 a day, and although there are some walks, Ibiza is not really much of a place to go for a walking holiday. However, if you like excursions, you won't be disappointed.
One of the most popular days out is to Ibiza town. You can go on an organised coach trip or make your own way there. And no matter where you are on the island, there always seems to be a local bus to Ibiza town. As well as being an excellent centre for shopping, especially fashion shops with clothes designed and made in Ibiza, it's also a good place to sit at a pavement cafe and watch the world go by. The old town is attractive to walk around, with many craft shops and restaurants. If you're sports-minded, there is a big new sports centre just outside Ibiza town that's open to tourists. As well as a large pool, there's also badminton, squash, Turkish baths and tennis courts. You can rent a court for £2.50 for half an hour, or pay £16 for a day ticket and have use of all the facilities. The only large water park is Aquamar at Playa d'Enbossa. It costs £6 for adults, £4 for children for a day ticket. It's not a large park and tends to get crowded, particularly in peak season. There is, however, boat and beach barbecue excursions seem particularly popular. One from San Antonio is reasonably typical. On the boat, you'll be plied with drink and then expected to take part in organised beach games, followed by a meal on the beach. This costs about £14 and runs most days. But be sure to check. Some days are for the young and lively, some more suitable for families. There are two popular evening excursions which appeal to different tastes. One is the Hillbilly Hoedown, basically a barbecue with a cowboy theme. The meal is sausages, beans and ribs with unlimited drink and plenty of communal singing. After the meal, there's an exhibition of horse riding, which includes photo opportunities for parents as their children are given a go. Finally, there's the hoedown, with hillbilly dancing in the open air and everyone having a boisterously good time. This trip costs about £17 for adults. By way of a contrast, the trip to Cantrui seems to be aimed at more restrained holidaymakers. It's based on a Polynesian theme and is a very much quieter evening out. There's extremely good food cooked in the Maori way, buried in earth. There is pork, beef and homegrown vegetables, all of it freshly cooked, and by all accounts it tastes wonderful. After the meal, there's a quieter version of a sing-along. This excursion costs £18 for adults.
There seems something slightly bizarre about going on holiday to a Spanish island and then to be offered excursions for either a cowboy or a Polynesian evening. Still, they are both very popular with British holidaymakers. Now, what is there to buy in Ibiza?
If you're looking for souvenirs or gifts to take home, it's worth visiting the Wednesday Hippie Market in Escanar. This is a large open-air market specialising in craft and fashion. It's considered by many holidaymakers to be the best place to buy small gifts. Fashion clothes are often a bargain, as they're designed by a local guild of designers and are unique to Ibiza. The T-shirts are usually hand-painted. Currently, day-glow paints are all the rage. Ceramics are another popular buy, both the plates and the cute little ornaments. Leather is good value. Bags, wallets and shoes, and also unusual leather face masks used as ornaments. And jewellery, not necessarily gold or silver, but fashion pieces in a huge range of styles, both modest and extravagant.
Since Ibiza is part of Spain, the more generous EEC customs regulations apply. You can spend £250 on clothes and gifts before you're liable for duty. Now, what if you don't want to go on a package holiday? Is it worth considering Ibiza? Matthew Collins, our independent